Today we're going to learn all about our oceans. Now there's not too many oceans in the Midlands, so we've come here to meet someone from the Irish Wildlife Trust who's going to teach us all about the types of animals we can find in the ocean and what we can do to help and save them. So here I am beside the ocean with Pádraic from the Irish Wildlife Trust. Now, Pádraic is an ecologist with the Irish Wildlife Trust, so maybe you can first tell me a little bit about what an ecologist is, and then why is the Irish Wildlife Trust interested in the oceans?
Okay, so ecology, Dan, is the study of all the living things on Earth, so that's humans and all the animals and all the plants, and how they interact with the air and the water and the non-living parts of the world. So ecology basically is the foundation of life on Earth.
Oh, very interesting.
So the Irish Wildlife Trust has been around for 50 years nearly, and our job is to raise awareness of the importance of wildlife and biodiversity, as people call it now, to people's lives, and to try and promote wildlife so that we have a better future for wildlife in Ireland.
Okay, and how does this all tie in with the oceans? What can you tell me about our oceans? Because I think I don't really know that much about them. I guess they're pretty big around Ireland, and kind of what sort of stuff do we find there?
Yeah, so we kind of forget in Ireland that we live surrounded by the ocean, and I guess the most important thing you need to know about the ocean is that it's big. It's about 2/3 of all life on Earth is ocean. In fact, Earth is not a great name for our planet. It really should be called ocean because very little of it relatively is land. And of course, we're all connected to the ocean. So even if you don't see the ocean very much, or you don't think about it, you're actually completely connected to the ocean. And I mean that in two ways. First of all of the water that we use ends up in the ocean. So if you flush the toilet, if you have a bath or a shower, and you see the water going down the plug hole, that ends up in the ocean via our rivers.
Yeah, because that's the lowest point we're going to get to.
Exactly.
Of course.
And the other thing is that all our weather comes from the ocean. So when it rains and the water's falling out of the sky, that water originated in the ocean. So we're completely connected to the ocean in everything that we do.
Okay, cool. And so what sort of creatures do we find in the ocean around Ireland? Do we have like great white sharks? So what do we have? What's the common kind of creatures we would find there?
So we have amazing wildlife in the ocean. And actually, because life started in the ocean many millions of years ago, we have a greater diversity of different types of species that live in the ocean than on land. So around Ireland, we have whales, we have dolphins, we have sharks, we have rays, we have all different kinds of fish. And of course, we have different types of seaweeds, and we even have coral reefs, imagine, in the oceans of Ireland.
Okay, wow, that is absolutely fascinating. Pádraic, I've heard that our fish are in a little bit of trouble at the moment in the ocean. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Dan, so unfortunately our oceans are not in a healthy state, and the biggest pressure on our ocean is from fishing. So in Ireland, people have been fishing for literally thousands of years. As soon as they got here, they were fishing. That's how they fed themselves. But since then, we have gone from small boats to enormous boats with huge technology, and basically we've taken way too many fish and other marine creatures out of the sea, and that's called overfishing.
Overfishing, okay, because I thought the problem was that there was too much plastic in the ocean. That was what was killing the fish.
Now that is a problem. I mean, we're throwing an awful lot of our rubbish into the sea, but a lot of that is not directly killing the fish and the sea life, whereas overfishing is directly killing the fish and the sea life.
Yeah, I guess if you catch a fish in a big net and bring it home and eat it, the fish is dead then.
Exactly, and it's also the food for the dolphins and the whales. So if we're taking all of that fish out of the sea, then the whales and the dolphins don't have enough to eat. And surprisingly enough, an awful lot of the fish that we take out of our sea, we're not even eating it. Either we're dumping it back in the sea, or we're turning it into pet food or food for farmed fish and things like that. So really it's a terrible waste of the marine life.
And I guess it's kind of like because it's so far away we don't see it. Is that kind of why it is? It's all miles away and under the water.
Well, that's the problem, and one of the most destructive forms of fishing we have is called bottom trawling. And this is where the fishing boat weighs a net down at the bottom of the sea and scrapes it across the bottom. Now I guarantee you, if that was something we did on land, like chopping down all the trees so we could catch a few of the birds that we could turn into dinner, there'd be absolute uproar over it. But as you say, because we don't even see it, a lot of people don't even know what's happening.
Okay, and I've heard there's almost like forests under the water as well. Is it kelp or something like that?
That's right, we have kelp forest. Kelp is a type of seaweed that grows very tall, maybe 4 or 5 meters tall, and it's an amazing place. If anyone ever gets a chance to put on a mask and a snorkel, it's the most magical place to look at.
Okay, wow, so much going on under the ocean, and it's really a lot to think about with our poor fishies being overfished. Okay, so our poor little fishies are being overfished, but I hear we also have problems with pollution.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're sending a lot of pollution into our seas as well, Dan. And you might remember we said that, every time you flush the toilet, that ends up going into the sea, usually through our river system. Now, they go through wastewater treatment plants, so these are places that are supposed to clean up the sewage before it goes into the environment. But unfortunately, in Ireland, we have a lot of plants that are not working particularly well, so the sewage isn't treated to a particularly high standard. Or believe it or not, in many places in Ireland, we're still pumping raw sewage into our rivers and seas around the country.
So that's like pooping in the ocean, basically.
Exactly,
Okay, that's not good. That is not good. And do we get any, is it just really from our own toilets and stuff like that all the waste comes from, or do we have any other sources of pollution?
So the main source of pollution in Ireland is from farming and from agriculture. So we have an awful lot of cows and an awful lot of farm animals in Ireland, and they're also pooing as well and going to the toilet. And all of that poo is ending up in our rivers in one way or another. So unfortunately, an awful lot of our rivers are polluted as well. And if you think about how rivers work, you have little streams that join together into big rivers, and all of those big rivers end up in the sea. So places like this at Dublin Bay mean that a lot of that pollution is concentrated in our estuaries and in our coastal areas.
Yeah, because everything all comes to this one point, and it's like it's collecting all the pollution from a huge area of land. And is this why you see there's a lot of green stuff growing all over the place here? Is that kind of because of this?
That's right, and people will know that poo from cows is dung, and it's a kind of a manure that people put on their crops to make them grow better. In fact, all of the poo that comes out of humans and animals is a type of manure. So when it gets into our environment, like in our seas, it acts as a fertilizer, and you get an awful lot of this green algae that you see growing in places where there's too much nutrients.
Wait though, if we're fertilizing the ocean with all this poop, is that not a good thing? Healthy plants?
Yeah, you might think so, Dan, but unfortunately when plants in the sea, just like us, need oxygen to survive. And when you have too much growth, they take all the oxygen out of the water, and that means there isn't enough oxygen for the fish and the other organisms that live there. So basically they suffocate, and when you have too much nutrients, you get what are called dead zones in the sea.
Okay, that sounds really bad. Overfishing them and suffocating them. And without getting too sad here, is it not also a thing that oceans are super important for climate change and we're harming that also?
Yes, absolutely. And there's two sides to that coin. On the one side, what we're doing to the ocean is really disastrous because global warming is heating up the water. That means the sea levels are getting higher, and that means that places like Dublin are going to be dramatically affected by flooding into the future. It means that the water holds less oxygen. So you can imagine that combined with the fertilization and the pollution is meaning even less oxygen in the water. We're getting too much carbon dioxide dissolved in the water, a bit like fizzy drinks where you've got carbon dioxide to give you the bubbles.
The fizziness.
The oceans are getting more acidic, and this is a big problem for animals that make shells like shellfish, mussels and oysters and things like that. They find it much harder to build their shells when the water is more acidic. So climate change is a disaster for the sea. On the other hand, the sea could be our biggest friend when it comes to treating climate. Because the ocean absorbs an awful lot of carbon. If you have an ocean that's full of fish and it's full of seaweed and it's full of coral reefs, all of those things are taking carbon out of the water and storing it away forever. So if we can protect the ocean, we can do an awful lot about protecting ourselves from climate change.
Pádraic, it all sounds a bit doom and gloom. Is there anything we can actually do to fix this problem?
Well, the good news, Dan, is that protecting the ocean is probably the easiest thing we can do to restore biodiversity and help with the climate crisis.
Okay, great.
And so the way we do that is through something called marine protected areas. So marine protected area is basically like a nature reserve that we have on land. You create an area in the sea and you don't allow any industrial fishing. So that's like big boats and you carefully control what's allowed to go on inside that area. So if we can do that, basically the fish will come back all by themselves. Okay, great. Well, that sounds like a great idea. And what, so we just have to tell all our friends, tell all our local politicians, just keep talking about it all the time, is that it? Talking about it, and if school children are watching this and they want to write to their local politicians, all you have to do is ask them, why do we not have marine protected areas in Ireland? Okay, brilliant. And we have a huge area of ocean, so I guess Ireland, as opposed to some other countries in Europe, are really in a strong position to create these big marine protected areas. Ireland, because we're an island, we have an amazing patch of Atlantic within our control. So there's a huge amount that we can do by creating marine protected areas, and also of course by ending overfishing. We have to stop taking too much out of the sea. But that should be easy. One of the biggest things that has not been done really is that our politicians haven't taken this problem seriously enough.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Pádraic. I've learned loads today about our oceans and what we can do to save them. I really enjoyed it. I hope the guys at home enjoyed it too, and I'm already looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye bye.